You are sitting in your living room right now, the AC is grinding away in the background, and your last electric bill landed somewhere north of $300. You can hear it, that low hum that never stops from May to September. And 8 feet above your head, in a space you almost never look at, there is a pocket of air sitting at 140 degrees, pressing down on your ceiling like an invisible furnace. That heat is what your air conditioner is fighting, not the outside temperature, the attic. My name is Eli. I paid $265 a month to the electric company for 30 straight summers before an Amish neighbor named Amos pointed at his kitchen ceiling and showed me what I am about to show you. And there is a $30 device the Amish have been bolting to their barns for 200 years, the same device that sat on every American hardware store shelf from Eisenhower until the year 2000, when it quietly vanished. I have stood inside one of those farmhouses on a 94-degree afternoon and felt cooler than I do right now in my own living room with the AC running full blast. Penn State documented this in a 1938 study by a researcher named Everett Schumann. 12 houses, 3 climate zones, every single ventilated attic stayed within 15 degrees of outside air. The unventilated ones ran 50 to 70 degrees hotter. You already own the house, you already own the attic, you just don't own the $30 piece that finishes the job. In the next 10 minutes, I am going to show you exactly where it goes, what to pair it with, and why a committee in 2019 voted to make sure no new house in America will ever have one again. Let me back up and tell you how I learned this, because the story matters more than the product. I grew up in country where horse buggies still pass the mailbox more often than Amazon trucks. For most of my adult life, I did things the conventional way. I bought the central air, I replaced it twice, I paid the bills, and every summer for about 30 years, I quietly accepted that keeping a family cool in August meant handing $265 a month to the electric company. That is the national average, by the way, for summer cooling in a single-family home. $265 every month until October. Then about 6 years ago, I was helping an Amish neighbor named Amos fix a hay rake on his property outside Millersburg. It was 91 degrees that afternoon. We broke for lunch and walked into his kitchen, and I spent the first 20 minutes looking for the air conditioning vents before I realized there weren't any. The temperature inside that kitchen was somewhere around 76. No compressor, no refrigerant, no window unit, nothing. I stood there sweating from the walk and watched his wife pull bread out of a wood-fired oven, and the room was still cooler than my own living room had been when I left that morning with my central air running full blast. I asked him how... He looked at me like I had asked him how water flows downhill. He pointed up at the ceiling, then at a small vent near the floor by the cellar door, then at a window cracked open at the very top of the staircase. He said hot air goes up, cold air comes in, and the attic does the work. That was the whole explanation. The attic does the work. Now here is what nobody tells you about a standard American attic in July. The shingles on your roof can hit 160 degrees in direct sun. That heat radiates down into the air, trapped between your roof deck and your ceiling. With no escape route, that air becomes a dome of pressurized heat sitting on top of your living space. The Florida Solar Energy Center measured this. A typical unventilated attic in a southern climate runs between 130 and 150 degrees by 2 in the afternoon. Half an inch of sheetrock is the only thing between that oven and your kid's bedroom. Your air conditioner is not cooling your house. It is fighting a furnace that is sitting on top of your house. So every month you pay it to lose that fight a little slower. So the question becomes very simple. How do you get the heat out of the attic before it presses down on the rooms below? And the answer, the one the Amish figured out 2 centuries ago and the one Penn State confirmed in 1938 and the one Oak Ridge National Laboratory has been studying for the last 15 years, is something called stack effect ventilation, accelerated by a small spinning device on your roof that costs about $30. The device has a name that sounds almost cartoonish, the Turbine Ventilator, the Whirlybird. From the 1950s through the late 1980s, almost every house built in the American South and Midwest had one of these bolted to the roof. They were standard equipment. Then, somewhere around the year 2000, they vanished from new construction. Not because they stopped working, not because something better replaced them, They vanished because homeowners associations decided they looked ugly. Real estate appraisers started ranking them as eyesores that drag down curb appeal. Builders quietly stopped installing them to avoid arguments with neighborhood committees. And an entire generation of new homes was constructed with attics that have nowhere for the heat to go. The device itself is almost embarrassingly simple. A small aluminum dome with curved fins. The fins catch even the slightest breeze and the whole assembly starts to spin. As it spins, it creates a low pressure zone directly underneath itself, which sucks hot air up and out of the attic at a rate of about 1,400 cubic feet per minute. On a typical 1,000 square foot attic, that means the entire volume of trapped hot air cycles completely every 2.5 minutes during peak afternoon sun. No electricity, no motor, no moving parts that require maintenance beyond a drop of oil on the bearing once a year. The wind does the work. And when there is no wind, the heat differential between the hot attic and the cooler outside air creates its own draft, pulling air up through the turbine on pure physics. That is the stack effect. Hot air rises. Always. It is not a preference, it is a law. Give it a path to the highest point of the building, and it leaves on its own and pulls cooler air in behind it from the lowest opening. Your attic becomes a chimney instead of an oven. The trade estimates put the cooling bill reduction between 10 and 20% in hot climates with attic ductwork. On a $350 August electric bill, the turbine pays for itself in one cooling season. One season, and then it keeps paying you back for the next 25 years because there is nothing in it that can break. But here is the part that started to make me angry once I understood it. The turbine is not the whole secret. The turbine is just the engine. The Amish system, the one Amos showed me in his kitchen that day, is a complete circuit. Air has to come in somewhere for air to go out somewhere else. And this is where the cooling industry has spent 50 years quietly making sure you never learn the second half. There is a $4 device, a snap disc thermostat, that you can pair with a small solar-powered fan and a vent that already exists in your attic wall. And the combination of those two pieces with the turbine on top creates what engineers call a controlled stack pressure window. The thermostat closes its circuit at 100 degrees Fahrenheit and opens it back up at 80. That is it. The fan only runs when the attic is genuinely hot and only on the sun's electricity. Your home draws 0 kilowatt-hours from the grid for the entire system. The Florida Solar Energy Center measured a 40% drop in cooling load with this one configuration alone. 40%. No new insulation, no duct sealing, no smart thermostat, no contractor. The ceiling temperature drops from 140 degrees down to about 90, and your air conditioner suddenly has nothing left to fight. It cycles less. It runs shorter, it lasts longer. In some of the Central Valley research homes that Oak Ridge studied in Stockton, California, cooling energy savings hit up to 79% in some of the older homes they studied. And those homes were built between 1948 and 2005. None of them were new construction, none of them required permits beyond what a homeowner can pull at the local hardware store counter. The materials cost less than a tank of gas, so why doesn't your house have this? Why doesn't your parents' house have it? Why doesn't your kid's school have it? Why did an entire technology that was bolted to almost every roof in America for 40 straight years suddenly disappear? The answer is not a dramatic conspiracy. It is something quieter and more frustrating. In 2019, a committee at the International Code Council with 67% industry representation voted on ventilation standards for new construction. The vote went the way the industry wanted it to go. Passive ventilation was deprioritized in favor of mechanical systems that require ongoing electrical consumption, which is to say, systems you have to keep paying for forever. The Amish didn't lose this knowledge. You were just never given it. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me because this next part is specifically for you. I am talking to the man whose house was built before 1980, whose attic has the original blown insulation, whose roof has gable vents at each end and maybe a ridge vent if he is lucky, and whose summer electric bill made him wince when he opened it last August. You can install this entire system in a single Saturday morning. You do not need a permit. You do not need a contractor. You do not need to ask anyone's permission. Here is exactly what you do. You go to the hardware store and you buy 3 things. 1 turbine ventilator, 12-inch diameter, about $30. 1 snap disc thermostat rated for 100 degrees Fahrenheit, about $4. And 1 small solar-powered attic fan with a 6-watt panel, about $60 at most. Total cost, under $100 for the whole rig. You go up to the attic at sunrise. When the overnight hours have let the space cool down to something survivable, you bring water. You wear safety glasses and work gloves and a headlamp because you need both hands free. You plan to work for no more than 2 hours at a stretch. If you feel dizzy, you come down immediately. No energy savings are worth a medical emergency. The turbine installs on the roof at the highest point, ideally within 2 feet of the ridge. You cut a hole the size of the turbine base, slide it into place over the existing roof deck, and seal it with roofing cement and a few screws. Most 12-inch turbines come with a template. The whole job takes about 40 minutes if you have done any roofing before. The solar fan mounts on the gable vent at one end of the attic, blowing inward. The thermostat wires inline between the solar panel and the fan motor. When the attic hits 100 degrees, the circuit closes and the fan kicks on. When it drops below 80, the fan shuts off. You never touch it again. There is one more piece, and this is the piece that almost nobody talks about, but it is the difference between a 20-degree drop and a 37-degree drop. Radiant barrier foil. A $30 roll of perforated reflective aluminum foil stapled to the underside of your roof rafters with half-inch staples. The foil reflects 97% of the radiant heat coming through the shingles back up and out before it can heat the air in the attic. Combined with the turbine and the solar fan, the foil takes the system from a 20-degree drop to a 37-degree drop on the attic temperature, which translates to roughly an 8-degree drop on the interior ceiling surface of the rooms below. That is the Amish kitchen at 76 degrees on a 91-degree day. That is the Penn State result from 1938. That is the Oak Ridge National Laboratory Central Valley Research. And the entire system, foil included, costs you less than $130 in one Saturday morning of your life. Now, one warning. There is a $30 accessory called an automatic turbine damper. It installs underneath the turbine and opens above 40 degrees Fahrenheit and closes below it. If you live anywhere north of the Mason-Dixon line and you don't install this damper, winter ice can lock the bearing solid and crack the seal during the thaw cycle. Nobody at the Southern Climate hardware store will mention this to you because they don't care. I am telling you now, so you don't make the mistake I almost made on my own roof. Shaw filed his bulletin in 1923. 47 farmhouses, Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. Nobody has cited it since. Before I show you what he found, the one detail that doubles everything I just described here is where the rest of the knowledge lives. The lime wash roof coating that drops attic temperature another 22 degrees from the outside, the evaporative cooling bucket from the summer cooling video, the ginger bug and the long bug, the $3 water throttle, the 15 hydrogen peroxide uses, every method from every video, room by room, the Amish Home System, link in the description. Shaw's detail is next, and it is the piece your house can use tonight without spending $1. So now you understand the system, you understand the cost, you understand why it works, and why the industry quietly let it disappear from new construction. But there is one more piece, and this is the piece that took me 3 years of conversations with Amish craftsmen in Lancaster County to finally understand, because they don't write it down anywhere and they don't explain it to outsiders unless you sit with them long enough to be considered worth telling. There is a specific placement detail, a single architectural choice, that takes the entire stack effect ventilation system and roughly doubles its performance. And it does not appear in any modern HVAC textbook. It does not appear in any building code. It does not appear in any home improvement magazine I have ever read. I found it referenced exactly one time, in a 1923 Pennsylvania Agricultural Extension bulletin written by a researcher named Shaw, who surveyed 47 Amish farmhouses in Lebanon County, Pennsylvania, and documented their cooling methods house by house. The bulletin was filed away and forgotten. Shaw's notes describe what he called the cellar-to-cupola draft column. The principle is this: A traditional Amish farmhouse has a low intake vent on the north side, ideally in the cellar or at the cellar door, because the north side stays shaded the longest and the cellar air sits at 55 to 60 degrees year-round thanks to the constant temperature of the earth below the frost line. The high outlet is a small cupola or gable window at the absolute highest point of the structure, which is your attic turbine in the modern version. But here's the part Shaw documented that nobody else seems to have written down. Between those two openings, every single interior door and transom must remain open in a specific sequence, and the staircase itself becomes the chimney. The hot air from every room in the house rises through the open staircase, into the attic, and out through the turbine. The cold cellar air pulls in behind it through the lowest opening. The entire interior volume of the house cycles every 6 to 8 minutes during peak afternoon heat. Shaw measured an 8 to 15 degree temperature drop on the main floor of every house he surveyed, with zero mechanical input beyond the natural draft. He noted in his field journal that the homes where the staircase had a closed door at the top of the landing showed no temperature drop at all. The door killed the column. Open the door, and the entire house becomes a cooling engine. Here is what this means for your existing home. If you have a 2-story house with a stairwell that ends in a closed door or a hallway with no vertical exit, you are killing the draft before it can do its work. The fix is to leave the staircase landing open during cooling season and to crack a single window at the highest point of the second floor, ideally at the top of the stairwell or in the hallway nearest the attic access. If you have an attic hatch, you crack it 1/2 inch. You point a small box fan up at the hatch from below. That fan accelerates the stack effect by giving the hot air at the top of the staircase a final push into the attic, where the turbine and the solar fan grab it and throw it out of the building. The cellar door stays open. The interior doors stay open. The basement, if you have one, becomes the intake. The attic becomes the exhaust. The house becomes the chimney. And you did all of it for less than $150 in materials, including the fans. Shaw wrote in 1923 that this configuration was so effective in the homes he surveyed that the farm families he interviewed considered summer heat a non-issue. They did not endure it. They did not suffer through it. They simply lived with the doors and the staircase set up correctly, and the heat handled itself. His bulletin was archived at Penn State and, as far as I can tell, has been cited in modern literature exactly 0 times. The Amish in Lancaster County are still doing it. They have been doing it since their ancestors arrived from Switzerland in the 1700s and brought the technique with them. They did not lose it. It was simply never given to the rest of us, because there is no profit in telling a man that his house is already a cooling machine if he would just open the right doors and put a $30 spinning hat on the roof. So that is the whole picture. A $30 turbine ventilator on the highest point of your roof, a $4 snap disc thermostat, a $60 solar fan on the gable vent, a $30 roll of perforated radiant barrier foil stapled under the rafters, an open staircase, a cracked window at the top, a cellar door left open at the bottom. Total cost, around $125. Total installation time, 1 Saturday morning. Total electrical consumption from the grid, 0 kilowatt-hours. Total reduction in cooling bills, between 40 and 79% depending on your climate and your house. Total years, this system will keep working somewhere between 25 and forever, because there is nothing in it that can wear out. Nothing that needs refrigerant, nothing that needs a service contract, and nothing that requires you to keep paying anyone anything after the day you bolt it together. That is the knowledge that has existed for 200 years in the farmhouses of Pennsylvania and Ohio. That is the knowledge that Penn State documented in 1938 and that Oak Ridge National Laboratory confirmed in the 2010s, and that the Florida Solar Energy Center measured down to the exact percentage. That is the knowledge that disappeared from American homes between 1985 and 2000 because a few homeowners associations didn't like the way the turbines looked on the roof, and because a committee with 67% industry representation voted to prioritize mechanical systems over passive ones in 2019. You were never given this. Now you have it. The next time your electric bill arrives in August and the number at the bottom makes you stop and stare, you will know that the heat pressing down on your ceiling did not have to be there. The Amish figured this out 200 years ago. Shaw wrote it down in 1923. Schumann confirmed it in 1938. The hardware store has been selling all the parts for 70 straight years. And the only reason your house doesn't have this system installed already is because somebody decided your roof needed to look like everybody else's roof, and somebody else decided you needed to keep paying a utility bill forever. You don't. You never did. The dirt under your feet sits at 55 degrees. The air at the top of your attic wants to leave. The wind on your roof wants to spin a turbine. The sun on your gable wants to power a small fan. Every piece of the system is already trying to work for free. All you have to do is connect the parts and get out of the way. That is what Amos was telling me in his kitchen that day when he pointed up and said the attic does the work. He wasn't being mystical. He wasn't being clever. He was describing a physical fact that his great-great-grandfather brought over from the old country and that his family has been quietly relying on for 8 generations while the rest of us slowly forgot. If you are the kind of man who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. You have been told for 40 years that staying cool requires a compressor, a refrigerant, a service plan, and a monthly check to the utility company. You have been told that the old ways were inadequate, that the Amish are simply tougher than the rest of us, that suffering through heat is the price of refusing modern technology. None of that is true. The Amish are not tougher, they are smarter. They kept the knowledge that the rest of us let slip away while we were busy signing up for 30-year mortgages on homes designed to require permanent grid dependence. You can take this knowledge back this weekend. You can spend $125 at the hardware store on Saturday morning and have the entire system installed by Sunday afternoon. You can watch the temperature in your second-floor bedroom drop 8 degrees by Monday night. You can open next month's electric bill and see a number that finally makes sense again. That is what is waiting for you on the other side of one Saturday morning and one roll of foil and one spinning hat on the roof. Drop a comment and tell me one thing: what state you live in and whether your house has a turbine ventilator on the roof right now. I read every comment and I want to see where in the country this knowledge has survived and where it has been completely erased. If you found value in this video, subscribe to the channel because this is not a one-off. This is the beginning of a series of recovered traditional techniques that the Amish never forgot and the rest of us were never taught. The next video covers the $300 buried tunnel system that delivers 55-degree air into a home year-round with 0 compressor and 0 electricity, the one the building code committees in Florida tried to block in 2021 to protect a $29 billion industry. You do not want to miss that one. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and I will see you in the next one.